Captain Jin Seo-jun stood on the bridge of the human warship Times Mercy's Dawn *, watching the massive solar flare wash over the quarantine stations like a golden wave of destruction. The alien structures, designed to keep Earth's fleet contained, flickered and died one by one as the electromagnetic pulse fried their systems. "Sir, the quarantine grid is down," reported Lieutenant Chen from the communications station. "All alien monitoring posts have gone dark." Jin nodded slowly. For 50 years, the Galactic Council had kept humanity trapped in their own solar system. They called humans Deathworlders, dangerous creatures from a violent planet who would bring chaos to the peaceful galaxy. The Council built massive space stations around Earth's territory, armed with weapons that could destroy any ship trying to leave. But now the solar storm had given them a window. Jin's fleet of 12 ships carried something the galaxy desperately needed: medical supplies and vaccines for the plague that was killing millions across the outer colonies. "Communications, patch me through to all ships," Jin ordered. The young officer's fingers danced across the controls. "You're connected, sir." Jin cleared his throat. "This is Captain Jin to all vessels. Our scouts report that 17 colonies are dying from the red sickness. The Galactic Council has abandoned these worlds, calling them lost causes. But we have the medicine they need." He paused, looking out at the stars that had been forbidden to humanity for so long. "I know what the aliens think of us. They believe we're monsters who only know how to fight and kill. Today, we show them what Earth really taught us, that no one gets left behind." Across the fleet, captains responded with quiet agreement. Captain Park Min-jun of the destroyer Times Iron Will Times was the first to speak. "My ship is ready, sir. We have enough medical supplies for 3 colonies. Healing Wind Times is prepared," added Captain Lisa Zhang from her medical frigate. "Our doctors are eager to help." One by one, the human ships confirmed their readiness. Each vessel carried tons of medicine, food, and emergency supplies. The fleet had been preparing for this moment, knowing that someday they would have the chance to prove themselves to a galaxy that feared them. "Set course for the Kepler system," Jin commanded. "Intelligence reports that the mining colony there has the highest casualty rates." As the human fleet moved through space, automated warning systems throughout the galaxy began screaming alerts. The Deathworlder fleet had broken containment. Every military base, every government center, every news station received the same terrifying message. Humanity was loose. On the Council homeworld of Centauri Prime, Emergency Session Alpha was called. Hundreds of alien representatives gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices mixing into a chaos of fear and anger. "The humans have escaped," shouted Ambassador Crix, his scales changing color with emotion. "They'll destroy everything we've built." "Mobilize the defense fleets," demanded Counselor Zeth. "Stop them before they reach populated worlds." But Grand Admiral Vexhai raised a claw for silence. The ancient reptilian had been watching the human ship's movements on the tactical display. "Wait," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Look at their trajectory. Look at their trajectory." The chamber fell quiet as all eyes turned to the holographic star map. The human fleet was not heading for major population centers or military installations. Instead, they were moving toward the quarantine zones, the plague-infected worlds that the Council had written off as lost. "This makes no sense," muttered Counselor Zeth. "Why would they go to those dead systems?" Ambassador Crix's scales flickered with confusion. "Perhaps it's a trick. They'll use the plague worlds as bases to launch attacks." But Admiral Vexhai was not convinced. She had studied human military tactics for decades, preparing for the day when Earth's warriors might escape their prison. Nothing in their battle patterns suggested this kind of deception. "Send reconnaissance drones," she ordered. "I want to know exactly what these Deathworlders are planning." Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim, the mining colony on Kepler 442b was dying. The red sickness had swept through the underground tunnels where the Vorthak workers lived, killing thousands. The disease attacked the lungs, filling them with crystal growths that made breathing impossible. Colony Administrator Thresh sat in his darkened office, staring at the casualty reports. 17,000 dead in the past month. The hospitals were full, the medicine was gone, and the council had declared the world a total loss. "Sir," came a weak voice from his communication device. "We're detecting ships approaching the system." Thresh sighed. "Probably more council vessels coming to evacuate the remaining healthy workers." "How many?" 12 ships, sir. But they're not council designs. The computers are having trouble identifying them." The administrator frowned and moved to his window. In the distance, he could see lights moving across the dark sky. As the ships drew closer, their shapes became clear, angular, aggressive designs that spoke of a warrior culture. "Sir," the voice from the communicator was now urgent. "The ships are broadcasting a message. It's in our language, but the accent is strange." "Put it through," Thresh ordered. A human voice filled the room, speaking slowly and clearly in the Vorthak tongue. "This is Captain Jin So-jun of the Earth Medical Fleet. We are here to help your people. Our ships carry medicine for the red sickness. Please respond if you can hear this message." Thresh stumbled backward in shock. Humans. The Deathworlders had come to his dying world. But they spoke of medicine, not conquest. His communications officer's voice crackled again. "Sir, they're requesting permission to land medical teams. They say they have treatments that can save our people." For a long moment, Thresh could only stare at the approaching ships. The galaxy had taught him to fear humanity. The violent species from the death world called Earth. But his people were dying, and these strangers offered hope. "Grant them landing permission," he said quietly. As the human fleet entered orbit around the plague-stricken world, news of their arrival spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Deathworlders had not come as conquerors. They had come as healers, carrying medicine to worlds that everyone else had abandoned. The day that would change everything had begun. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the medical shuttle onto the surface of Kepler 442b, her boots crunching on the red sand that covered everything. The air tasted of metal and sickness, and even through her environmental suit, she could feel the weight of despair hanging over the colony. Behind her, a team of human medics unloaded cases of medicine and portable medical equipment. The Vorthak colonists who had gathered to meet them stood at a careful distance, their yellow eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. "Remember," Elena said to her team through the comm system, "move slowly. Keep your hands visible. They think we're monsters." The lead Vorthak, Administrator Thresh, approached cautiously. His blue-scaled skin had a sickly gray tinge, and his breathing was labored. Elena recognized the early signs of red sickness infection. "You are the human healers?" Thresh asked, his universal translator making his words sound mechanical. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez," she replied, removing her helmet to show her face. "We're here to help your people." Thresh took a step back when he saw her features. The forward-facing eyes of a predator, the strong jaw, the scars that marked her as someone from a dangerous world. But Elena smiled gently, the expression softening her appearance. "How many of your people are infected?" she asked. "Nearly half the colony," Thresh admitted. "The children are dying fastest. Our own doctors say there is no hope." Elena's jaw tightened. She had seen the reports during the flight to Kepler 442b. The red sickness created crystal growths in the lungs that standard galactic medicine could not dissolve. But humans had dealt with similar diseases on Earth. The silicon dust poisoning in the old mines. The crystalline formations that grew in polluted areas. "Take us to your sickest patients," she said. The Vorthak hospital was a nightmare. Hundreds of aliens lay in beds, their breathing shallow and painful. The sound of coughing echoed through the halls like a death song. Vorthak doctors moved between patients with empty hands, having run out of medicine weeks ago. Dr. Kess, the chief medical officer, met them at the entrance. His scales were dulled with exhaustion, and his hands shook slightly. "Human healers," he said, his voice filled with doubt. "What can you do that we cannot?" Elena set down her medical case and opened it carefully. Inside were vials of a bright blue liquid, an experimental treatment developed on Earth for crystal lung disease. On our world, we learn to fight diseases that grow inside the body like rocks. This medicine dissolves the crystals and helps the lungs heal. Dr. Kess examined the vials with scientific interest. "Your world created treatments for such specific conditions?" "Earth is a hard place," Elena explained. "The air can be poison, the ground can be acid, and the weather tries to kill us every day. But that taught us to find ways to heal from anything." She moved to the nearest patient, a young Vorthak child whose breathing was barely a whisper. "May I?" she asked Dr. Kess. The alien doctor nodded, curiosity overcoming his fear. Elena prepared the injection with quick, practiced movements. She had done this procedure thousands of times on human patients, but never on an alien. The dosage calculations had been made during the journey, based on Vorthak physiology data they had stolen from Council databases. "This might hurt for a moment," Elena told the child softly, though she knew he probably could not understand her words. But tone was universal, and the child seemed to relax slightly. The injection went smoothly. Within minutes, the child's breathing began to improve. The wheezing sound that had marked every breath started to fade. Dr. Kess stared in amazement. "The crystals. They're dissolving." "Ah, distablugs." Word spread quickly through the hospital. Human healers were working miracles. Soon, Elena and her team were surrounded by Vorthak doctors, eager to learn. The language barrier made things difficult, but medicine had its own universal language. "Watch carefully," Elena said as she demonstrated the treatment procedure. "The dose must be exact. Too little and it won't work. Too much and it becomes toxic." Dr. Kess translated her words for the other Vorthak medics. Elena noticed that his initial fear had been replaced by professional respect. "You speak like someone who has seen many deaths," he observed. Elena paused in her work. "On Earth, we have a saying. Death is patient, but healers must be faster. We learned to fight diseases that would have destroyed other species. Your world truly is as dangerous as the Council claims." "More dangerous," Elena admitted. "But danger teaches hard lessons. It taught us that life is precious, and that we must fight for every person we can save." As the day progressed, more human medical teams arrived. Captain Park Min-jun brought supplies from his destroyer, while Captain Zhang's medical frigate established a field hospital outside the colony. The humans worked alongside Vorthak doctors, sharing techniques and knowledge. Young Dr. Neth, fresh from medical school, watched in fascination as human medic Sergeant Collins treated a patient with severe crystal lung damage. "Your hands move so fast," Neth observed. "Are all humans this quick?" Collins smiled as he prepared another injection. "We have to be. On Earth, if you're not fast, people die. Every second counts. But you seem so careful. The Council told us humans were violent and destructive." The sergeant paused in his work. "Violence and healing both require precision. The difference is in what you choose to do with your skills." Meanwhile, Administrator Thresh found himself working alongside Captain Jin, helping to coordinate the distribution of medicine throughout the colony. The human captain moved with quiet efficiency, never wasting motion or words. "Why did you come here?" Thresh asked, during a brief break. "Your people could have attacked Council worlds. You could have taken revenge for the quarantine." Jin looked out at the colony, where human and Vorthak medics worked side by side to save lives. "Revenge doesn't cure disease. It doesn't save children. We came here because this is what Earth really taught us, that the strong protect the weak. But the Council fears you. They say humans only know how to destroy." Earth is a world that destroys the weak, Jin agreed. But those who survive learn something important. We learn that life is worth fighting for. Every life. By evening, the transformation was remarkable. Patients who had been dying that morning were sitting up in their beds. Children who had struggled to breathe were laughing and playing. The sound of coughing had been replaced by voices. Voices of hope. Dr. Kess found Elena as she finished treating her last patient of the day. Dr. Vasquez, he said formally, I owe you an apology. We were taught that humans were monsters. But you have shown us that monsters do not heal. Elena smiled, exhaustion showing in her eyes. We're not monsters, Dr. Kess. We're just people from a world that taught us to never give up. As news of the miraculous healing spread across the galaxy, the Council's emergency session continued on Centauri Prime. But now, the debates had a different tone. Reports were coming in from multiple systems. Humans were delivering medicine, not destruction. Admiral Vex High studied the latest intelligence reports with growing confusion. They're saving lives, she said to the assembled council. The Deathworlders are actually saving lives. The day that would change how the galaxy saw humanity was far from over. But on Kepler 442b, as human and alien medics worked together through the night, the future was already being written in the breath of children who would live to see tomorrow. Captain Park Min-jun watched the impossible sight on his main screen. Research Station Epsilon 7 flickered in and out of reality, trapped between normal space and the deadly dimension called subspace. The massive structure, home to 3,000 scientists from 12 different species, was slowly being torn apart by dimensional forces that no one fully understood. Status report, Park ordered, his voice calm despite the crisis unfolding before them. Lieutenant Kim checked her instruments. The station entered subspace 47 minutes ago during their dimensional research experiment. The gateway is unstable and collapsing. At current rate, the station will be completely lost in less than 2 hours. Park studied the readouts. The station was caught in a dimensional rift that pulsed with deadly energy. Every few seconds, parts of the structure would vanish completely, only to reappear moments later. Anyone caught in those sections would be dead. Sir, Communications Officer Lee reported, we're receiving distress calls from inside the station. They have wounded who need immediate evacuation. On the screen, 3 Council rescue ships held position at a safe distance from the rift. They had arrived hours earlier, but made no attempt to approach the dying station. Open a channel to the Council ships, Park commanded. The face of Admiral Quill appeared on screen, his bird-like features twisted with frustration. Human vessel, you must maintain safe distance. The dimensional rift is too dangerous to approach. What about the people on that station? Park asked. Unfortunate, Admiral Quill replied coldly. But we cannot risk additional ships and crews. The rift could expand at any moment. We have declared Epsilon 7 a total loss. Park felt anger rise in his chest, but his voice remained steady. There are 3,000 beings on that station, and there would be 6,000 dead if we attempt a foolish rescue that fails, the Council Admiral snapped. This is not the place for Deathworlder recklessness. The channel closed, leaving Park alone with his thoughts. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They all knew what the Council thought of human tactics. Too aggressive, too risky, too willing to sacrifice ships for lost causes. Sir, Lieutenant Kim said quietly, long-range sensors show the rift is actually following a pattern. It pulses every 43 seconds. For about 8 seconds, it stabilizes enough that a ship might be able to get through. Park studied the data. 8 seconds to fly through an unstable dimensional rift, dock with a space station, and begin evacuation procedures. The Council was right. It was impossible. What's our ship's maximum acceleration? He asked. Engineer Chief Yoon looked up from his console. In a straight line, with all power to engines? We could reach the station in 6 seconds. Time to dock? Normal docking procedures take 15 minutes minimum, sir. Park smiled grimly. Who said anything about normal? He opened ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to attempt something the council thinks is impossible. We're going to save those people. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had served under Captain Park for 3 years and knew his reputation. On Earth, they called him the man who never left anyone behind. Chief Yoon, I need every bit of power you can give me. Route everything except life support to the engines. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Kim, I need you to calculate the exact moment when the rift will be most stable. Already working on it, sir. Communications. Patch me through to the station. A desperate voice crackled through the speakers. This is Director Zen of Epsilon 7. Who is this? Captain Park Min-jun of the Earth. Ship times Iron Will *. We're coming to get you out. Impossible. Zen's voice carried the weight of despair. The council ships tried to approach hours ago. The rift nearly destroyed them. The council ships aren't human, Park replied simply. Prepare your people for emergency evacuation. We'll be there in 90 seconds. On the bridge, tension filled the air. Everyone knew the odds. One mistake, one miscalculation, and they would all be lost in subspace, forever. Rift pulse in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Kim announced. Park gripped his command chair. All power to engines on my mark. The seconds crawled by. On the screen, the dimensional rift pulsed with rainbow-colored energy that hurt to look at directly. Rift pulse in 10 seconds. Kim called out. Park watched the energy patterns, feeling for the right moment with instincts honed by years of flying through Earth's dangerous asteroid belts. 5, 4, 3, 2, mark. The times, Iron Will times, shot forward like a bullet fired from a gun. The acceleration pressed everyone back into their seats as the ship raced toward the impossible rift. On the council vessels, alarms screamed as they watched the human ship dive into certain death. For a moment, the times Iron Will times was caught between dimensions, reality twisting around the hull in ways that made the crew's eyes water. Then they were through, emerging in the pocket of stable space where Epsilon 7 waited. Emergency docking procedures, Park shouted. Chief Yoon, lock onto their docking port with magnetic grapples. The ship slammed into the station's docking bay with bone-jarring force. Under normal circumstances, such a violent docking would have damaged both vessels. But Park had calculated that they had less than 30 seconds before the next rift pulse. Docking clamps engaged, Yoon reported. Begin evacuation. All crew to emergency stations. The airlocks opened and chaos erupted. Wounded aliens were carried aboard by human crew members, while scientists grabbed essential research data. The ship's corridors filled with a dozen different species, all united in their desperate flight from death. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's medical officer, worked frantically to treat the wounded. Many had been injured when sections of the station phased in and out of reality. This one has dimensional sickness, she called out, examining a young Zalarian researcher. He was caught in a phase shift. Human medics had never treated dimensional sickness before, but Dr. Chen had read about similar conditions in Earth's experimental teleportation programs. Get me a neural stabilizer and prepare for emergency surgery. Station Director Zen found himself working alongside Captain Park to coordinate the evacuation. Your people, he gasped between trips to the docking bay. They're carrying wounded who outweigh them by 3 times. Park helped lift an injured Bronthan scientist onto a stretcher. On Earth, you learn to carry more than your own weight. Our gravity makes us strong. But why risk your lives for strangers? Park paused in his work, sweat dripping from his face. Because that's what people do. They help each other. The council races don't think this way. Then maybe the council races never lived on a world that taught them the value of cooperation. As the evacuation continued, the dimensional rift began to pulse more frequently. The station shook with each wave of energy, and sections of the structure began to disappear permanently. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim's voice came through the comm system. "Rift patterns are becoming erratic. We need to leave now. Rift patterns. 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 Rift patterns." Park made a quick count. "How many people are still on the station?" 47 in the research section, Zen replied. "But that section is about to phase out permanently. There's no time." Park was already moving. "Chief, Yoon, prepare for immediate departure the moment I give the signal." "Sir, where are you going?" "To get the rest of them." Park ran through the station corridors as reality twisted around him. Sections of wall flickered in and out of existence, and the floor rippled like water. He reached the research section just as the last group of scientists struggled to reach the evacuation point. "This way," he shouted, grabbing an injured Shelton who had fallen behind. The group ran through corridors that were more nightmare than reality. Behind them, entire sections of the station simply ceased to exist. Park pushed the scientists forward, using his own body to shield them from falling debris. They reached the docking bay just as the final rift pulse began building. "Go! Go!" Park screamed, shoving the last scientist through the airlock. The Times Iron Will Times detached from the station and shot back toward the rift, just as Epsilon 7 vanished completely into subspace. For a heart-stopping moment, they were again caught between dimensions, the ship's hull groaning under impossible stresses. Then, they were through, emerging into normal space where the council ships waited in stunned silence. On the bridge, Park collapsed into his command chair, exhausted but victorious. Around him, his crew began the process of caring for nearly 3,000 refugees. Admiral Quill's voice came through the communications system, filled with disbelief. "Human captain, how did you—" "That was impossible." Park wiped sweat from his forehead. "Admiral, impossible is just another word for something that takes a little longer." In the following hours, as the rescued scientists were transferred to Council medical ships, the story of the impossible rescue spread across the galaxy. The humans had achieved what the entire Council fleet had declared impossible. Director Zen sought out Captain Park before transferring to a Council vessel. "Your people saved us all," he said simply. "I will never forget this." Park shook the alien's hand. "Just remember that when someone tells you humans are monsters, we're not perfect, but we don't abandon people in need." As news of the rescue reached the Council chambers on Centauri Prime, Admiral Vex High found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about humanity. The Deathworlders were not behaving like conquerors. They were behaving like heroes. The impossible had become possible, and the galaxy was beginning to see humanity in a new light. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 18 hours straight. In the Great Chamber on Centauri Prime, representatives from 47 species argued over what they had witnessed. The humans had broken free from their quarantine, but instead of conquest, they had brought healing and rescue. Ambassador Zex High, a tall reptilian with silver scales, stood at the central podium. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had studied military tactics for 3 centuries. "Fellow council members, we must not be fooled by this deception. The humans are clearly using psychological warfare." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Councillor Brix, whose people had lost 2 colonies to human expansion in ancient wars, nodded vigorously. "They want us to lower our defenses. These acts of mercy are calculated to make us vulnerable. But what if they're not?" The voice belonged to Councillor Yeth, a young Aqualian whose blue skin shimmered under the chamber lights. "Director Zen's report from Epsilon 7 shows no signs of deception." The humans risked everything to save people they'd never met. Ambassador Zexhi's scales darkened with irritation. Director Zen was traumatized by his experience. His judgment cannot be trusted. I'm 70 people. Before Yeth could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. Priority message from the Outer Rim colonies, announced the chamber's AI. Put it through, ordered Grand Counselor Vorth, the ancient leader whose people had founded the council millennia ago. The holographic display filled with the image of Colonial Administrator Jen, a Mantari whose insect features showed clear signs of stress. Council members, the Andromedan invasion fleet has struck 3 of our Outer Rim worlds. Colonies Alpha 7, Beta 1-2, and Gamma 4 are under attack. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Andromedans were a warrior species from outside the galaxy who had been raiding Council territory for decades. Their ships were fast, brutal, and merciless. What is the Council fleet's response time? Demanded Ambassador Zexhi. Administrator Jen's mandibles clicked nervously. Our nearest battle group is 47 hours away. The colonies will have fallen by then. Eat. Then the colonies are lost, Counselor Brick stated coldly. We cannot risk major fleet assets for 3 minor settlements. There are 60,000 people on those worlds. Yeth protested. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Zexhi replied. This is basic strategic thinking. The debate that followed was heated but brief. By a vote of 31-16, the Council decided that the Outer Rim colonies could not be defended. Evacuation ships would be sent to collect any survivors after the Andromedan fleet moved on. What they did not know was that the human fleet had intercepted the same distress signals. Captain Jin So-jun stood in the war room of the Times Mercy's Dawn *, studying tactical displays with his fellow captains. The Andromedan fleet consisted of 23 heavy cruisers and dozens of fighter craft, a force designed to overwhelm colonial defenses. We're outnumbered 3-1, observed Captain Park Min-jun, his fingers tracing attack patterns on the holographic display. The colonies have minimal defenses, added Captain Zhang. Mostly civilian structures and farming equipment. Jin nodded grimly. The smart play would be to avoid the fight entirely. The human fleet had accomplished its primary mission, delivering medicine to plague worlds. They could return to Earth as heroes without risking their lives for aliens who had imprisoned them for 50 years. Sir, Communications Officer Lee interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Colony Alpha 7. The voice that filled the room belonged to a frightened child, speaking in broken galactic standard. Please. Anyone who can hear this. The bad ships came and hurt Mama. There are children hiding and we're scared. Please help us. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in silence. Captain Lisa Zhang was the first to speak. How many children are on those colonies? Jin checked the intelligence reports. Approximately 14,000 across all 3 worlds. And the Council response? Evacuation ships will arrive after the Andromedans leave. To collect bodies, Park said quietly. Jin looked around the room at his fellow captains. These were people who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions, who had chosen to risk everything to help strangers. He saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. The Andromedans expect easy targets, he said finally. They don't know we're here. Sir, Zhang said carefully. If we engage them, the Council will think we're expanding human territory. They'll see it as the beginning of our conquest. Maybe, Jin agreed. But those children will be alive to grow up and judge for themselves what kind of people we really are. The decision was unanimous. The human fleet changed course for the Outer Rim. 6 hours later, the Andromedan invasion force arrived at Colony Alpha 7, expecting another easy victory. Instead, they found 12 human warships waiting in defensive positions around the planet. Admiral Korax, the Andromedan fleet commander, studied the tactical display with confusion. His species had evolved as apex predators, and he understood violence in all its forms. But these ship positions made no strategic sense. Analysis, he growled to his tactical officer. The human ships are positioned to shield the colony, Admiral. They've made themselves primary targets while giving up tactical advantages. Corax's triple-jointed jaw clicked with amusement. Fools. They sacrifice tactical superiority to protect weaklings. Signal the fleet. Destroy the human ships first. The battle began with a massive Andromedan assault. Plasma cannons lit up space as the alien warships focused their fire on the human defensive line. The humans returned fire, but their position made effective attack patterns impossible. On the surface of Alpha 7, Colonial Administrator Fenish watched the battle through the emergency bunker's viewports. He was a practical Borvian who had never believed in heroes. But what he saw defied logic. "Why are they doing this?" he asked his aide, a young Centauri named Kess. "I don't understand, sir." "The humans could easily retreat. They have faster ships. They're dying to protect us," Fenish realized. The Deathworlders are dying to protect people who feared them. In space, the Time's iron will times took a direct hit to its port engines. Captain Park kept his ship in position even as fires broke out on 3 decks. Damage report. Port engines offline, hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, his engineering officer reported. "We're losing atmosphere. Seal the breaches. Reroute power to weapons." "Sir, we should withdraw for repairs." And Park's voice was steady as laser fire lit up the space around them. "We hold the line, Chief. Those people are counting on us." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Human ships took devastating damage, but refused to break formation. They had positioned themselves as living shields between the Andromedans and the colonies, and they would not move. But human stubbornness had an effect the Andromedans had not expected. Their hit-and-run tactics, designed to break enemy formations, were useless against opponents who would not run. The battle became a grinding slugfest where human determination began to matter more than superior numbers. Captain Zhang's medical frigate Time's Healing Wind Times was not designed for combat, but she used it to rescue crew members from damaged human ships while continuing to coordinate the fleet's defensive efforts. "Captain Jin," she called over the battle network, "we're taking heavy casualties. How long can we hold this position?" "As long as we have to," Jin replied, even as his own ship shuddered under Andromedan fire. The turning point came when Admiral Corax made a crucial mistake. Frustrated by human stubbornness, he ordered his ships to break off their attack on the human fleet and begin bombardment of the colony itself. "If they want to protect weaklings so badly," he snarled, "let them watch those weaklings die." But this was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. The moment the Andromedan ships turned toward the planet, the human fleet abandoned their defensive positions and attacked with desperate fury. Captain Park's damaged destroyer rammed an Andromedan cruiser, his crew using their ship as a weapon when their guns failed. Captain Zhang's medical frigate, never designed for combat, used her superior engines to outflank enemy ships and target their weapon systems. The battle raged for hours, but human desperation and tactical flexibility began to tell. Ships designed for healing became improvised weapons. Crews trained for mercy missions fought with the fury of people defending their children. When the surviving Andromedan ships finally withdrew, 13 of their vessels had been destroyed. The human fleet was battered and bloodied, but the colonies were safe. On Colony Alpha 7, Administrator Fenish stood in the ruins of his communication center and tried to find words for his report to the council. "The humans," he said slowly, "saved us. They knew we feared them, knew we had helped keep them imprisoned, but they came anyway. They fought impossible odds and bled for people who had never shown them kindness." The news reached the council chambers within hours, transmitted along with tactical records that showed human ships deliberately sacrificing themselves to protect alien civilians. For the first time in the 18-hour emergency session, The chamber fell completely silent. Ambassador Zexhai stared at the battle footage, watching human crews choose certain death rather than abandon their posts. "This is not deception," Counselor Yeth said quietly. "No one dies for psychological warfare." Grand Counselor Vorth, who had remained silent through most of the debates, finally spoke. "Perhaps it is time to reconsider our assumptions about humanity." The galaxy was beginning to understand that the creatures they had feared as monsters might actually be something far more dangerous to evil and tyranny. They might be heroes. 6 months after the solar flare that changed everything, Admiral Song Da-un stood before the Galactic Assembly on Centauri Prime. The massive chamber, designed to hold representatives from every known species in the galaxy, buzzed with nervous energy. For the first time in galactic history, a human leader had been invited to address the full assembly. Song wore her dress uniform, the dark blue fabric bearing the insignia of Earth's combined fleet. She was a small woman by human standards, but she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had survived Earth's harsh military academies and the brutal space battles that followed. Behind her sat the human delegation. Doctors who had cured alien plagues, engineers who had rebuilt, destroyed colonies, and captains who had risked everything to save strangers. Their presence had been demanded by dozens of species who wanted to thank humanity personally. Grand Counselor Vorth, his ancient features showing the weight of millennia, called the session to order. "Admiral Song Da-un of Earth, you have been granted the privilege of addressing this assembly. The floor is yours." Song stepped forward to the central podium, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched her every movement. Some still showed fear. Old prejudices died hard. But many more showed curiosity and, surprisingly, respect. "Honored representatives," Song began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "6 months ago, your ships kept us imprisoned in our own solar system. You called us Deathworlders, monsters who would bring chaos to your peaceful galaxy." A murmur ran through the assembly. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably, remembering their own votes for the quarantine. "You were right about one thing," Song continued. "We are from a death world. Earth tried to kill us every day, through disease, through weather, through predators that saw us as food. But you misunderstood what that made us." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. "You thought it made us destroyers. In truth, it made us protectors." Ambassador Zexhai, who had argued for decades that humanity was a threat, found herself listening with unexpected attention. The human admiral's words carried a weight that mere politics could not match. "When the solar flare gave us our freedom," Song said, "we had a choice. We could have taken revenge for 50 years of imprisonment. We could have used our military might to carve out an empire among the stars. Instead, we chose to heal." The chamber's holographic displays activated, showing footage from the past 6 months. Human medical teams working alongside alien doctors. Human ships delivering food to famine-stricken worlds. Human engineers rebuilding colonies destroyed by natural disasters. "We chose to heal because that's what Earth taught us," Song explained. "On our world, cooperation meant survival. Helping others meant helping ourselves. The strong protected the weak, because today's weak might be tomorrow's strong." Director Zen, who had traveled from Epsilon 7 specifically for this address, stood up in his section of the assembly. "Admiral Song speaks truth. Her people risked everything to save my research station. They could have let us die, but they chose to face impossible odds instead." Other voices joined his. Colonial Administrator Fenish described the human fleet's sacrifice during the Andromedan attack. Dr. Kess from Kepler 442b spoke of human healers who worked without sleep to save alien children they had never met. "But we understand your fears. Song said when the testimonials ended. "We know what we look like to you. Predators with forward-facing eyes and strong jaws. We know our ships look like weapons of war. We know our history includes violence and conflict." She gestured to the human delegation behind her. "But look at what we chose to do with those weapons. Look at what we chose to do with that strength." Counselor Yeth, who had been one of humanity's earliest supporters in the assembly, asked the question that many were thinking. "Admiral Song, what does Earth want from the galaxy?" Song's answer was immediate and simple. "Partnership. Not conquest?" pressed Ambassador Zexhai, her scales showing the colors of skepticism. "Conquest is wasteful," Song replied. "It destroys what it claims to value. We prefer cooperation. And if the galaxy refuses this partnership?" Song's expression grew serious. "Then we will continue to help where we can, and hope that our actions speak louder than old fears. We cannot force anyone to trust us. Trust must be earned." Grand Counselor Vorth leaned forward in his ancient seat. "And what would this partnership look like, Admiral?" "Earth proposes the creation of a galactic emergency response force," Song announced. "Human ships and crews working alongside volunteers from any species willing to join us. Our mission would be simple: to go where others cannot or will not go, to help people in need, regardless of their species or politics." The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives saw the wisdom in having specialists trained for impossible rescues. Others worried about giving humans too much freedom to operate throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Zexhai stood to voice the concern many shared. "How do we know this emergency response force would not become a human military expansion?" Song's response was calm but firm. "Because we invite you to join us. Every ship would carry mixed crews. Every mission would be overseen by representatives from multiple species. We offer our strength, but we do not demand exclusive control. And if we refuse, then we continue as we have, helping where we can with the resources we have. But imagine how much more we could accomplish working together." Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had become famous throughout the galaxy for her work on plague worlds, stood up from the human delegation. "If I may speak, Grand Counselor?" Vorth nodded his permission. 6 months ago, I watched Vorthak children dying from diseases that my Earth training allowed me to treat. But I also learned from Vorthak doctors about genetic therapies that could help human patients. When we share knowledge, when we share skills, everyone benefits. Captain Jin So-jun joined her. On Epsilon 7, human determination allowed us to attempt an impossible rescue, but it was Zalarian computer expertise that calculated our approach vectors. It was Mantari engineering that repaired our damaged docking systems. We succeeded because we worked together. One by one, the human delegation shared their stories. Each tale reinforced the same message. Cooperation produced better results than isolation. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about jurisdiction, authority, and the practical details of implementing such a force. But gradually, the tone shifted from skepticism to possibility. Finally, Grand Counselor Vorth called for order. "The Assembly will vote on Earth's proposal in 3 days. Until then, representatives are encouraged to study the detailed plans and speak with their governments." As the session ended, something unprecedented happened. Alien representatives began approaching the human delegation directly, asking questions and offering suggestions. The barriers of fear and prejudice were not gone, but they were cracking. Ambassador Zexhai, who had been humanity's greatest opponent, found herself face to face with Admiral Song as the chamber emptied. "Your speech was persuasive," the reptilian ambassador admitted. "I spoke only truth," Song replied. "We are what Earth made us. The question is whether the galaxy will let us be partners or force us to remain strangers. And if some species refuse to work with humans?" Song's smile was understanding but sad. "Then, we respect their choice and hope that someday they will change their minds. We cannot force friendship, Ambassador. We can only offer it. 3 days later, the Galactic Assembly voted. By a margin of 37 to 10, with several abstentions, the Emergency Response Force was approved. The Deathworlder classification was officially retired, replaced with a new designation, Guardian Species. The quarantine around Earth was lifted permanently. Human ships began operating throughout the galaxy, no longer as feared invaders, but as welcome helpers. The mixed crews of the Emergency Response Force became legendary for their willingness to attempt impossible rescues and their refusal to abandon anyone in need. Years later, as human children grew up alongside alien friends on a dozen different worlds, the galaxy looked back on the day everything changed. The day the solar flare broke humanity's chains. The day the Deathworlder fleet became extraterrestrial deliverers. It was the day the galaxy learned that monsters and heroes often looked exactly the same. The difference lay not in their appearance or strength, but in what they chose to do with the power they possessed. Earth had taught humanity that life was precious and worth fighting for. Now, working together with their alien partners, they carried that lesson to the stars. One rescue, one patient, one act of courage at a time. The Deathworld had produced not destroyers, but protectors, and the galaxy was safer because of it.